This video will be discussing ICD-10 with My Vision Express. The topics that we'll be covering are translating your ICD-9 codes to ICD-10, also the external internal mapped findings, as well as your refractive and contact lens findings. These will be found in the available button of the exam. We're also going to introduce the injury builder, and last but not least, importing diagnosis into My Vision Express for ICD-10. So we'll first start off with translating those ICD-9 codes to 10. We're going to go to File, Setup, and we're going to go to Company. This is going to be a global change. So the moment that you do translate those 9 codes to 10, that's going to affect everyone. And I'm just going to go to the Systems tab here. You have your diagnosis section here with the general. When I select the plus sign here, you have your diagnosis. It says ICD-9, and it's a drop down, so you'll have ICD-10. Now, the moment that I switch this over to ICD-10, not only is it going to translate all of the existing 9 codes to 10, but it's also going to map your external and your internal findings as well as your refractive and contact lens findings to the appropriate ICD-10 code. It will also be introducing that injury builder, which will be found in your external and your internal tab. It will also be importing any ICD-10 codes that are related to optometry or optical. So I'm going to select yes here. You're going to see this message that's just stating that changing the setting will automatically save and convert all the codes to the format selected. I'm going to go ahead and say yes. This is something, by the way, that you can reverse. So if you don't want to go back to ICD-9, then you can always come back here and then I'll go ahead and switch that back from 10 to 9. Now, this is also going to warn you that the application will import a list of ICD-10 codes. Would you like to remove all of the ICD-10 codes that are currently set up in the system before the import occurs? So to explain this a little bit more, some customers will have ICD-10 codes already in the system. I would recommend to delete those if you did not import them yourself. This will give you a nice new fresh list. It'll be updated as well. So I'm going to say yes to this. After a moment, it'll go ahead and import what it needs to. Then you'll see this message here, so changes will take effect after the application is restarted. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK to that. I'm just going to save this just to make sure, and I'm just going to exit out. Alright, so I went ahead and I logged off and I logged back into MVE. That way the application, the changes can take into effect into the application. So I'm in an existing exam right now, and we're going to go over the refractive and the contact lens tab as well as the external and the internal. So what we've done in these tabs is starting in the refractive tab here, and I'm just going to do a quick finalized prescription. But based off of the prescription that I'm entering here, it's actually going to recognize the appropriate ICD-10 code based off of that prescription. And of course, the same thing will apply with your contact lens tab. So let me just go ahead and transfer this quickly, and then we'll go into the contact lens tab and add a prescription on there as well. Now with the external internal, you'll see in a moment that they do have those drop-down options. We have also linked the ICD-10 codes based off of the drop-down options that you've selected, and we'll see that in a moment. I'll just quickly change this to final as well and then transfer this over too. Now let's go into the external and the internal tabs. So once again, these drop downs here, these items, they actually have an ICD-10 link to them. Now, more specifically, the eyelids that we're looking at here. If you know about ICD-10, we all know now that it's not just one diagnosis. We want to be more specific. So it's looking at laterality. So not only is it just going to be the eyelid, but it wants to know which eyelid. Is it upper? Is it lower? Is it your right eye? So we have these two columns here. We have our columns for our right eye, we have the column for the left eye. Now watch what happens when I select abscess of eyelid. It's going to give me this window here that will allow me to select if it is a right upper eyelid or a right lower eyelid or unspecified. Same thing will happen when you select from the left eye. It will go ahead and give you abscess of left upper eyelid, left lower eyelid as well. So I'm going to go ahead and select upper eyelid. The internal tab is the same exact concept here. So if I do select an item, as I have done so here, it is going to have that ICD-10 equivalent too. Now, one new change that you guys are going to notice in both these tabs is we're introducing the injury builder here. So you'll see these two sections. Now they're going to appear once you translate the 9 codes to the 10 codes. And we'll get back to this in a moment. Now that I've selected some findings here in my two tabs here, and also I've entered a prescription for my refractive and contact lens tab, let's go ahead and go to the assessment tab. I'm going to select my available button. Now you'll see here that it's going to pick up diagnosis from the 4 tabs I mentioned before. You'll also be able to see the source here. So this is coming from my contact lens tab, my refractive tab, my lid, my vitreous. You can tell which category it's coming from in the external and the internal tab. Now, you do have the option of selecting all of them. Otherwise, you can just select the ones that you want to bring over. So there's some duplicates here. I have 2 myopias, so let me just select the one here from my spectacle, and then we'll do astigmatism, and then of course my findings for my external and internal tab. I'm going to go ahead and import that. It is going to give you the option to select the appropriate SNOMEC code for those as well, so I'll just go ahead and pick one. We'll kind of go through that here. And this will be beneficial, especially for those who are participating in the meaningful use the meaningful use incentive penalty program now. And typically when you do import a refractive error, it is going to ask you for the refractive charge. So I'm just going to say no here. But you can see here, based off of what I've selected in the exam, it does have the appropriate ICD-10 code. So we've got our right upper eyelid, we've got myopia, which is bilateral. So it's going to be specifying both eyes. And then we have here regular astigmatism in the right eye. And then we have a finding here for my right eye. So looking back at the refractive here in the example, you will see that I only do have astigmatism in the right eye. So it does pick up that diagnosis correctly. Another option that you also have other than the available button is you can actually add a diagnosis without selecting it from the other tabs here. You can just add it on the fly by just selecting the add button, which is right below the available button. Now, neat little feature that we have here is you can search for that diagnosis code based off of the ICD-9 code or even the description. So let's use cataracts for the example here. If I type in 366, as we all know, it's pretty close to cataracts here, you're going to see all of the diagnosis codes here. To the left, you have the ICD-10 code. All the way to the right, you have that ICD-9 code equivalent, and in the middle is your description. If I get a little more specific here, let's do 366.16. Here are all the codes for ICD-10 codes that are equivalent to that ICD-9 code. And then of course, if I go ahead and search by just the name, it'll go ahead and search for that as well, and always give you that ICD-9 equivalent. That way it'll make it a little easier for you guys to search for them. Now let's actually backtrack here and let's look at that injury builder. So let's go into the external tab. So the injury builder is found right over here. The plus sign here will allow you to launch that builder. Once again, if you know a little bit about ICD-10 codes, when it comes to documenting any injury diagnosis, just the diagnosis for the injury now is no longer enough. They want to see a little more information, like the activity that your patient was doing, the place of occurrence, and any external causes. So because of the fact that multiple diagnoses will now have to be included, we've created this injury builder to kind of make it a little easier for you guys. So the first column here that we have is the type of injury. It is a scroll down. So I can say a burn, for example, and it's going to go ahead and write that injury based off the categories that I've selected below, right above. That way it's just a nice documented sentence of everything that you've selected. The next thing here is going to be your type of visit. So Now, with injuries, you're going to notice that type of visit and also other diagnosis code. Not all of them will have these type of visits, only specific ones. So you have three different types of visits. You have your initial encounter, you have your subsequent encounter, and you have your sequela encounter. For those who are unsure of the definition for each three, I'm just going to have a little message here so you guys can see, or a little text box here so you guys can see what the definition for each type of visit is. So I'm going to go ahead and select initial encounter. It is also going to ask you for the location. So I'm going to go ahead and say left eyelid. Next is going to be your activity. So what was my patient doing while when they had this injury? So you do have it, once again, a little scroll bar here. Now, what will happen is when I select an item here, let's say ice and snow, it's actually going to take you into another section here. So it gets a little more specific. So ice skating, for example, we'll go ahead and select that. And once again, you can notice that based off of what I'm selecting, it's neatly and nicely creating that sentence right above. Next is going to be my place of occurrence. Once again, it's a little scroll bar here, and just like the activity, once I select an item here, it does kind of branch off into additional options. And once again, based off of what I'm selecting here, it's going to go ahead and pick up that appropriate ICD-10 code. Then you have, last but not least, you have your external cause. So any external causes that could have had a hand in that injury here. And once again, it is a scroll bar. They do have a lot of options here, but we do kind of filter it for you, so that way if you select one item, it'll go ahead and branch off into little other items just to kind of make it easier for you guys to navigate. So this is my injury that I'm going to go ahead and use as an example. So a burn, initial encounter of a burn in the left eyelid, and they were ice skating in the bathroom, and a pedestrian with other conveyance injured with pedal cycle in non-traffic accident. So there you go. I'm going to go ahead and close out of this. So the way that we're going to find those diagnoses again is going to be in the assessment tab and in your available button. So when I go ahead and select that, you're going to see those diagnoses appear. So we're going to go ahead and select the ones that I want to import. And you can see here, of course, the appropriate ICD-10 code. So we'll go ahead and import that. Go ahead and save this. Next thing I want to show you is I mentioned before that we're going to be importing all the ICD-10 codes that are related to optometry, ophthalmology, optical. We are not automatically importing all 68,000 ICD-10 codes because you may not need all of them. So we kind of give you guys the leeway of importing the ones that you do need. That way you're not kind of going through all these different diagnoses, will kind of make it a little more difficult to filter through all 68,000. So the import feature that we have, and we'll go to File, Setup, and we're going to go to Diagnosis. So in our diagnosis window here, we have an import button. If I go ahead and select that import button, I can go ahead and search for a diagnosis that's ICD-10. So I can go ahead and import that. So let's just say for the example of diabetes. So these are all of the ICD-10 codes that are related to diabetes, and over here you can see that you can go ahead and select the ones that you want to import. Once you do select that item that you want to import, you'll just select OK, and then that way you can go ahead and bring it over into MVE. One thing that I would be cautious about, this is a lookup service. And you do want to make sure that you are selecting the correct codes. There are some codes that are unbillable, like this one over here on the top. It looks like it would be an unbillable code. You do have to be a little more familiar with ICD-10 codes to kind of recognize which codes are unbillable and are billable. But once again, you can just go ahead and select the ones that you want and then select OK. And I'll go ahead and import that into MVE. Last thing I want to cover is we have, it's a common question, you know, after ICD or after October 1st, what if I have to bill for an ICD-9 code? So you could actually, when you are in the claim in My Vision Express, you can go ahead and scrub that claim. So let's just pull up a claim here and take a look at that really quickly. And one thing to also say, when you do translate the ICD-9 codes to 10, it's not going to affect any orders or exams that were previously done. So it's not like you're going to pull up an order that was done, a month or so ago that had a 9 code, and now you won't see it. Now it's not like you'll pull it up and you'll see a 10 code. It'll still remain with that 9 code. It's just any new orders or new exams that you'll be creating, those will have the 10 codes. So let's just pick Charles Darwin here again for my claim, and let's just look at the charges tab. So when you are scrubbing the claim and you do need to have an ICD-10 code here, or ICD-9 code, you can go ahead and just type in that 9 code. That way it won't, that way you can go ahead and successfully resubmit that claim or submit that claim for the first time with the appropriate code. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us. You also have a resource on our website, support.myvisionexpress.com. We do have knowledge-based articles as well as videos for your viewing pleasure.